At one point in her life, Katherine Heigl believed to have it all: the perfect relationship with a handsome businessman in the prime of his life, the founder of the most successful and profitable fashion company on the entire planet, a man with more money than he could ever spend. Money that allowed Roger Riverdale to provide him and his devoted wife with a life of luxury, a life that from the outside looked as if they were the happiest couple. An image of an exciting and wonderful life portrayed by them towards the public. But what they didn't know was that what they saw was the furthest thing from the truth. On the outside, people saw the smiling faces of a couple with stories of expensive vacations and never-ending trips to every corner of the world. But behind closed doors, hiding their reality, lived two humans with a marriage at the brink of falling apart. A marriage that, although belonged to a couple, the pain solely rested on the shoulders of Katherine. Katherine, as being accustomed to a life of class where having to pretend to be someone she was not was normal and necessary to keep a bright image in the eyes of everyone. Countless weekends of Katherine bragging on her cell phone to her best friend Julie in the bathroom while she was immersed deep in her bubble baths about her exciting times of shopping, subtly bragging about how much money her and Roger had. But within every goodbye she said to Julie, a click ending to their phone call, existed a woman who couldn't help but to drown her real feelings in alcohol, liters of a comforting liquid which its amount paled in comparison to the quantity of her tears. Accompanied by lonely nights of a woman waiting an eternity of hours to see the man she loved. Countless nights of Katherine pacing around in her living room wondering why isn't he home. 3 miles away, a man known as Nobel sits on a bar stool, accompanied by a strong drink. A man broken and defeated, counting his last days on this earth, consequence of a diagnosis that he had terminal cancer. A man with pain in his eyes and the thought of concluding his 30 years of existence. Even thought Nobel lived in a daily state of despondency. He was calm, he couldn't help but to smile at his misfortune. Because he knew his days of misery were to come to an end. Nobel gets up from his stool, drops a few dollars to pay for his drink. Nobel heads out of the bar with the intention of jumping out of a bridge to end his misery. During that night in Katherine and Roger's apartment condo, Katherine began to have a meltdown. She grabs her cell phone and dials Julie's cell phone number in an attempt to seek consolation and words of comfort from her best friend. The phone rings 4 times with no answer. Julie's cell phone rings for a 5th time. Julie picks up her cell phone. "Hello, I'm sorry to bother you, Julie, but it's 3 in the morning and Roger still has not come home. This is more late than the usual. I'm beginning to worry." "I'm sorry to hear that, Katherine. Try calling him on his cell phone, maybe he will pick up." "I tried that, Julie, but it keeps sending me to a voicemail. Can you please come over, Julie? I'm in a real need of a friend right now," said Katherine with a whimpering tone in her voice. "I'm sorry, Katherine, but I'm a little busy here," said Julie with a mouthful. Out of nowhere over the phone call a loud giggling is heard by Katherine. "Julie, what was that?" "What was what, honey?" answered Julie. "I heard someone giggling," said Katherine. "You're hearing things, honey. That's the television," said Julie. Out of nowhere another noise was heard by Katherine, this time loud and repetitive gagging sounds. "Julie, what are those noises?" Katherine asked. "Honey, you're being paranoid," said Julie. "Julie, I'm clearly hearing something." "I'm sorry, baby, but I have to go." As Julie is about to end the phone call when a third sound is clearly heard by Katherine, the voice of a man moaning out loud. Katherine's heart sank to her stomach as her cell phone slips out of her hand, falling onto the floor, a feeling of betrayal as her heart shatters into a million pieces. On the other side of the phone call, Julie looks at her cell phone screen and taps the end call option with her index finger. "Fucking idiot," Julie says in annoyance. "It was better this way. I'm tired of her ass anyway," said Roger. Katherine rushes as she looks for the nearest bottle of wine, but she finds an empty bottle. As she searches everywhere within the apartment, all she keeps finding are empty bottles. She finally quits searching and walks towards the door, grabs a set of keys that are hanging from a key hanger, opens the door, and she heads out to the nearest bar. As she sits in her car during her drive, She begins to wonder if it's all worth the suffering and the life of lies she had to endure with the man she has been sharing her life with for all of these years. As her hands are firmly grasping the steering wheel, she looks at what was once a symbol of her unconditional love towards Roger. Even though Catherine has always had the option of leaving Roger and start a new life, she chose to stay by Roger's side because she deep down wanted to believe that it was better to deal with Roger's abandonment and still be with him, than to be alone without him. Within the mist of confusion that clouded her judgment and a sea of never-ending tears, she came to a sudden realization that her marriage was over. With tears in her eyes and a sudden fit of rage, Catherine pushed her shoe on the accelerator pedal with the intent of ending her life. The hand clock on her speedometer quickly closing in at 120 miles per hour. As Nobel walks into the middle of the street, he suddenly sees a set of car lights getting closer towards him. As the car is about to hit him, Nobel crosses his wrist together as he covers his face from the blinding car lights. Catherine stops in time, her car being an inch away from touching Nobel.